Did Konami just break pendulums? What's going on, guys? Cam from Team Table 1 decided to change up the channel name. You know, I've been talking about doing big things for the channel, and this is probably the first big move that I've actually done for, you know, throughout the whole channel. But today I want to talk about the new pendulum monsters that just got announced. They are called Valiants, or yeah, they're called Valiants. So the text effects on these are literally crazy. All pendulum monsters, actually, there's a ton of them to go over, so let's get into it. Let's see. So for the main monsters, let's for the first one is a level 2 water spellcaster, Valiant Miko. Attack and defense 500, pendulum scale 1. Its pendulum effect is you can only use this pendulum effect of this card's name once per turn. So I guess you can't use like same copies of it, or different copies of it, and then try to use its other effect. During the main phase, you can special summon this card to your main monster zone in this card's column. Also, you cannot special summon for the rest of this turn except Valiant monsters and monsters from your extra deck. So essentially that means is you can put these cards in your pendulum zones to scale them, and then special summon them to your main monster zones. That's actually a really cool way to, I don't know, do pendulum monsters. I've never heard of that. And then the second one, the Valiants no Humihiki. I'm going to say the Japanese names because I don't know if these English names are going to be official yet. But this one's a level 4 water spellcaster pendulum monster. Attack and defense 1100, pendulum scale 1. It's looking like both of the monsters so far are pendulum scale 1s, and its pendulum effect is during the main phase. Yeah, essentially the same thing as the first monster. You could special summon it to the main monster zone that's above it. And its monster effect, you can only use the first and second effect monster. The first and second monster effect of this card's name each once per turn. If you control the special summon card, you can target one effect monster on the field as cost, toss a coin, and if its heads, negate the monster's effects. If it's tails, it can have the current monster's attack. So it's either like a 50-50 way in your favor. There's no like downsides to this, is what it's looking like. And then its second effect, if this card is moved from a monster zone to another, you can target one card on the field, toss a coin. If its heads, destroy that card. And if its tails, return it to the hand. So obviously there's probably going to be some cards in here that are going to be able to move themselves in the monster zones. So it's actually really cool. This guy's random, but his effects are pretty plus. Like, there's no negative to them, honestly. The third one, Valiants no Ninja, level 6 water, 1800 attack and defense, pendulum scale 1. So yeah, it's looking like all of these cards are going to be like level 1 or pendulum scale 1s, and then its pendulum effect is you can only use it once per turn. This one's different. If a Valiant's World Shinra Bansho is in a field zone, or if you control a water Valiant's monster, you can special summon this card from your main monster to your main monster zone in this card's column. So essentially the same thing, but you have to have a field spell on the field in order to activate this effect. Its monster effect is you can only use the first and second monster effect of this card's each once per turn. The first one is you can target one monster in the main monster zone and move it to an adjacent monster zone. So yeah, I was right. You can move the monsters. So let's say if you had one of these guys out on the field, you can use her effect to move it either way, left or right, whichever way you want. In its second effect, if this card is moved from a monster zone to another, you can target one Valiant's monster card in your spell and trap zone and special summon it to your main monster zone. So these cards can put cards inside of your spell and trap zones too? Okay, the next one, okay. Fire swords, you know, I kind of like this monster already. It's Valiant's no Musha, level 8 water. I don't know why it's a water monster when it's obviously fire themed, but its attack and defense is 1900 each, pendulum scale 1. It says you can only use the pendulum effect of this card once per turn. Okay, so it's looking like this card is the opposite of the other one, because it does say if the Valiant's World Shinra Bansho is in a field zone, or if you control a water Valiant's monster, you can special summon this card your main monster zone in this column. Oh no, so they do share the same pendulum effect, okay? And it says you can only use the first and second monster effect of this card's name each once per turn. The first effect is you can target one face-up card in the spell and trap zone and return it to the hand. So according to this card's text, you can target let's say monsters in your spell and trap zone, and yeah, or Valiant's monster card in your spell and trap zone, and it might mix in with this effect because this is saying, what is it saying? It's saying you can target one spell and trap card in your spell and trap zone. So that also counts as your little monsters being set in the spell and trap zone. So you can maybe recycle cards with this effect. And the second effect, if this card is moved from a monster zone to another, you can fusion summon. Fusion summon one Valiant's fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as fusion materials, as well as in your pendulum zone. That's actually a great effect. So yeah, these two actually mix really well because this card can move this, and then pendulum summon, or not pendulum summon, fusion summon in a pendulum deck a new Valiant monster. Okay, so moving on to the next monsters, these are looking a little different. Yeah, these are like all the humanoid ones. This is looking like a robot. So this one's called Valiant's Buster Baron. It's a level 2 fire machine, unlike the other water spellcasters. Its attack and defense is 800 and its pendulum scale is 1. So I'm assuming all of these pendulum monsters are going to be scale 1 again, unfortunately. But you can only use the pendulum effect of this card's name once per turn. Okay, it says during your main phase, you can special summon this card to your main monster zone in this card's column. Okay. Also, you can't special summon for the rest of the turn except Valiant's monsters. Okay, so it's looking like all of these cards almost have the same pendulum card effect. Monster effect, you can only use the first and second monster effect each once per turn. First effect is if you control this special summon card, you can target one Valiant's monster in your main monster zone and move that target to an adjacent monster zone. Okay. So it kind of has the ninjas effect as well built into this one. So that's actually really good because all the Valiant monsters do have effects, or some of the Valiant monsters have effects when it's moved to a monster zone. They get an extra effect, so that's actually awesome. Its second effect is if this card is moved from a monster zone to another, you could target one card in the pendulum zone, place it in an adjacent spell and trap zone as a continuous spell. Okay, that's actually not bad. Being able to special summon, and then this just enables you to fill up the board, I would assume. The second robot looking card, I wonder if these are like their enemies or something like that, is what it's looking like. Valiant's Voltage Viscount. Level 4 Fire Machine Pendulum Monster, 1400 attack and defense, and its pendulum scale is 1, obviously. Blah blah blah, you can only use the effect. Yeah, it's basically the same thing as all the other cards. Monster effect. If you control the special summon card, you can place one face-up Valiant's pendulum monster from your extra deck face up in your spell and trap zone as a continuous spell. So I'm assuming that's going to be like your fusion card that you're going to be fusion summoning. And if this card is moved from monster zone to another, you could place one face-up Valiant's pendulum monster from your extra deck in your pendulum zone. So this deck is going to be crazy recycling, I would assume, just like all pendulum decks are. You could just recycle anything you want. Level 6 Fire Machine, obviously, 1700 attack and defense, and pendulum scale 1. This one does have a different pendulum effect, and it's saying Valiant's World Kyong Wison, I probably butchered that, but is in a field spell zone, or you control a fire Valiant monster. You could special summon this card from your main monsters to your main monster zone in its column. So it's looking like this robot is kind of like the opposite versions of these guys right here. It says, oh, sorry, wrong card. And its monster effects, you can only use them once per turn each, obviously. During your main phase, you can roll a 6-sided die and excavate cards from the top of your deck equal to the result. So obviously, if you roll a 3, you're excavating 3. And if you do, you can add one excavated Valiant's card to your hand. Also shuffle any remaining back into the deck. Adamantispators much? Bless me. If this card is moved from a monster zone to another, you can roll a 6-sided die once, and if the result is 2, 3, 4, or 5, you can special summon one monster card from your spell and trap zone to your main monster zone in this column. So yeah, you can put cards inside of your spell and trap zones and then special summon them back out. So again, just recycling, it almost seems like. And it looks like this is the last robot card. It's level 8, Fire Machine, 2000 attack and defense, and 1 pendulum scale. You can only use the pendulum effect of this card once per turn. And if you have the field spells on the field or you control a fire Valiant monster, you can special summon this card to your main monster zone. It says monster effect, you can only use the first and second effect each once per turn. The first effect is you can target one set card in the spell and trap zone and it cannot be activated this turn. Not too bad. That might force out like another spell and trap zone, spell and trap on your opponent's side. Otherwise, you know, it's going to get destroyed. The second effect is if this card is moved from a monster zone to another, you can target one face-up monster in your opponent's main monster zones and take control of it. And if you do, treat it as a Valiant monster. You cannot declare an attack or activate its effects. That's actually really good. It's kind of like Crackdown. It's literally a built-in Crackdown. That's actually super good. And now moving on to the, I think that, yeah, this is the fusion monster. This is like, I'm assuming the boss monster. Valiants no Shu. I don't know. I'm just going to say that Valiants assemble Mama Naka. That's the English name. But it's a level 10 water spellcaster fusion pendulum monster. That's a mouthful. 2800 attack and defense. And his pendulum scale is actually 10 instead of 1. You can only use the pendulum effect of the cards each named once per turn. During your main phase, you can activate one of these effects. Special summon this card to your main monster zone in its column. Okay. Or you can move one monster in your main monster zone to an adjacent main monster zone. So it's basically the two best Valiant monster effects in one. And then its materials require 3 Valiant monsters. So with this effect, actually, you could take control of an opponent's monster and then treat it as a Valiant monster, and then you can move this card with another card and fusion summon this card right here. So that's not too bad. And you can only use the first monster effect of this card named once per turn. It's a quick effect. You could target one effect monster your opponent in your opponent's main monster zone. Place that monster in your opponent's spell and trap zone. And that monster's column is a face-up continuous spell. And if a card is already in that zone, destroy it. And if you do destroy a monster card this way, your opponent loses life points equal to its attack. That is crazy. I don't know if there's a lot of cards that can get your monsters out of spell and trap zones, but yeah, I can't really think of one unless destroying your own spell and traps, which is, you're gonna go minus just to get a card in your graveyard just to try to get back. That is crazy. And it looks like we have another boss monster. It's another fusion monster. It's the robot version. The level 10 Fire Machine Fusion Pendulum Effect monster. Valiant's Genesis Grand Duke. So I don't know if these guys are like enemies or teaming up, but its attack and defense is 2500 and its pendulum scale is also 10. You can only use the pendulum effect, so this card's named once per turn. You could activate one of these effects, summon this card to your main monster zone, and then move. Yeah, essentially the same pendulum effect as this one. And it only requires 2 Valiant monsters, and it must be fusion summoned or special summoned from your face down extra deck by attributing 1 level 5 or higher non-fusion Valiant monster in the same column as an extra monster zone. It is very specific, but its effect is if this card is special summoned, you could target 1 monster card in your opponent's spell and trap zone, return it to the hand, and if you do, inflict damage equal to its attack. And then this card gains half the attack of the monster. So these two can go in synergy very well with each other. And it looks like, I think these are the field spell cards actually. It says you can only use the second effect of this card's name once per turn. This is the Shinrabansho, the humanoid field spell. It says when this card resolves, place 1 Valiant's field spell from your deck face up in your opponent's field zone, except this card. So I guess you're placing the opposite field spell card in your opponent's zone. It says in its second effect, if there are 2 cards in the field zone, which obviously there will be once it resolves, the turn player can target 1 monster card in their spell and trap zone. The turn player special summons it to their main monster zone in the same column. Wow, so basically just putting monsters in your spell and trap zone and then special summoning. But I don't know how this is going to work if it's the other turn's player and they can use this effect as well. So that's kind of weird. Let's see, Kyong Wison. So it looks like, yeah, the 2 homelands of the different monsters. And it says you can only use the second effect once per turn. And it's essentially the same effect as soon as you resolve this card. You're going to be able to put the opposite one in their field spell zone. And it says if there are 2 cards in the field spell zones, then turn player can target 1 effect monster in their opponent's main monster zone. In the same column as a monster the turn player controls, place the targeted monster face up in its controller's spell and trap zone in the same column as a continuous spell. That is very specific. But even if the opponent uses this against you, they're putting a monster in your spell and trap zone, and your monsters thrive off of being in the spell and trap zone. So that's actually really, really good. Yeah, that looks like all of the cards that are going to be released in the Valiants archetype. We'll definitely be making another video if any other cards get released. I'm going to be loving this archetype. I'm going to be doing some early play testing with this archetype too. It's going to be super fun, but yeah. So basically all I wanted to go over in this video, and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and tell me what you see next in the comments. Peace.